Hey, you guys, I'm sorry. We're having um a little technical difficulties backstage. Just give me 1 second. I'm so sorry about this. You guys hang on. Okay, now I have lost Allie too. So sorry you guys. Hopefully and Crime Curious, I sent the link. Okay. So hopefully we're okay now. I apologize for the a little uh a little kerfuffle behind the stage because I came in on my phone to start and then um Allie was calling me and it kept knocking me off the stream because I was waiting for my computer to load.
I'm so sorry, Jen.
All right, okay. I got it taken
Yeah.
care of.
Yes, you did.
Hey,
Awesome.
I'm curious. Hey, Allie. Hello.
Hey, girls.
Hello, ladies. I was having technical difficulties as well. My FBI guy kept getting kicked off, and I was like, it's probably the FBI.
The FBI. I'm telling you, Jennifer, Jen, it's your association with me. I'm on some type of watch list due to my Google searches. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I know this.
Oh, I
Allie,
hope nobody ever looks at my Google searches.
Hopefully, we're not victims of a crime. I've thought about that before too. Like, imagine if our lives had the microscope, like, Shanann and Chris Watts, and like they do. But yeah, I was late
yes.
to your stream because I was getting the kids ready for bed and stuff. So I was like 20 minutes late, and I guess he must have already been gone. I was wondering what happened.
We
Did,
just couldn't connect. Every time I would bring him up, it would glitch out, and I would just get the circle. So we're gonna reschedule. I'm looking at maybe with the PI. I think I'm gonna do next Wednesday at noon Mountain.
oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure it
Oh,
out.
that'll be good.
I actually booked
Well,
trial then, so I was about to say that's like right at lunchtime, but
Yeah, can you imagine a time when we're done with that trial?
I know.
yeah, but we still have Lori.
Oh,
And
I
let's
can't wait
be
to catch up on
honest.
Lori.
This maniac is going to go for 11 billion years because there was a rumor floating around at the end of the week before this one that the defense or that the state was going to rest like Monday or Tuesday. And as we can see, no, they're not resting anytime soon. However, I do want to say that welcome to everybody. And before we officially get into it, let's go ahead and hear a word from our sponsor.
And Kai, when you're on Jen Lou's channel, what do you do with the like button?
Smash, smash, smash! Yeah.
There we go. I don't know what it's doing on YouTube because I kept getting knocked off on my phone. So let me go over to YouTube and see what's even happening over there. But anyway, there was a little kerfuffle kind of in the court a little today. When I listened back to it on audio, it wasn't as big of a deal as I kind of thought it was going to be. It was kind of like not that deep. Basically,
Which part?
Bra Ian,
Mm.
I keep wanting to say Padalowski, but obviously that's not correct. It's, because that's Jared Padalecki, from Supernaturals. Because now I have Supernatural. Because now I have that every time they start talking about anything in this case with the, spirits demonic spirits inhabiting bodies and the person is, uh has to be saved and whatnot. It's this. I'm telling y'all, it's literally the season 2 of Supernatural. I'm not even lying. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean
it's
that's
true.
really what it is.
It's
And they,
crazy because
yeah,
you're right, but it's real life, and that is so crazy to think about.
and they added a new wrinkle to it this time. So the explanation given is that, for example, for Tammy, when the evil spirit entered her body, she is locked in a cage inside of herself, like in a prison. Also, part of supernatural, because that was the whole thing, is getting the key to lock up Lucifer, as a whole thing, the devil, whatnot. It is just, Chad isn't even original. I'm sorry, Chad. And I don't appreciate the shenanigan he tried to pull this morning. Let me tell you all about that. So I had the day off from trial today, and I said, I'm going to catch up on some stuff around the house. The people that lived in this house before us had like one of those big kid pools. It's obviously a child's pool, but it was huge, right? And it needed to be like, I thought we were going to have to like break it up, but then I was like, no, I think I can fit this in the trash can. And today was trash day. So I'm out there and I'm pulling this big folded up pool, and out jumps this huge, gigantic toad. And you guys know that my biggest fear in life, I fear nothing else but a frog or a toad. Just absolutely. And it landed on my foot. It freaked me the hell out. My trunkalas, my flip flops were wet. Y'all, I have never ran so fast inside of a house in my entire life. It freaked me all the way out. Had to get my son. It was a whole big deal. And I really think that it's because I said that Chad could come visit me in my closet portal. And then he did. And he came as his true self, a toad. So that was my scare today.
As you were telling the story, I'm like, wait a minute, how does this connect to what happened with Chad this morning? And I was like, oh,
Yep.
oh, okay.
Brought it full circle. My storytelling skills are not nearly as good as yours, Jennifer, but I'll get there eventually.
I loved it. I loved it.
So kind of what I thought, if I don't choke, hang on, let me mute because I'm coughing. Hold on a sec. Kind of what I thought that we would do tonight is, it is Tammy Daybell's birthday. And there were a lot of things that came out this week with respect to her death and what they think happened. And but the first thing that I want to play for you guys is about the hair. And the reason I want to play that for you is because this is what caused the excuse me, this is what caused their trials to ultimately be severed. Okay? That this hair has been in evidence the entire time. Okay? Why? I can't honestly really understand um about how this came to be at the end of such a huge deal. um excuse me, um at the last minute, as if this wasn't explained to to the defense. I don't understand, because it's part of it's part of the discovery. And there I don't know what happened there, but whatever it was, anyway, Chad's attorney wanted it tested, which he was right to have it tested. It was a risk. It could have gone very, very badly had the results been anything other than what they were, particularly for Chad, right? So I want to talk about that a little bit, because it's what ended up causing the severance, the trials to be severed, because Lori did not waive her right to a speedy trial. And there are very, very clear rules about this. And they were fast encroaching on her rights being ignored, essentially, although she allegedly, in my opinion, and she's been accused of violating several people's rights, but that's neither here nor there. We don't sink to their level. So Chad's attorney wanted it tested, and also, not only did he want it tested, he said there's no way that the results are going to be done in a timely fashion to where I can even have my experts take a look at the results and see what's what, right? So that's what ended up causing the trials to be severed. So I want to play that audio really quick. And while I do that, I'm going to go hunt down my cup. I left it somewhere. And because I need a drink, I'm coughing. So here we go. We're going to listen to that. And then I want to hear everybody's thoughts on the panel. Okie dokie artichokes. Okie dokie. Here we go.
Okey-doke.
I'm going to put the closed captions on. You know me. I love a closed caption. All right, here we go. Oh, maybe I should turn it up. That would help.
Welcome back to Network. The jury for our trial out in Boise, Idaho is currently on a lunch break, and you know what trial that is because it gives us a chance to talk to our boots on the ground for an update in the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. Well, you know, doomsday cult mom who faces charges in the deaths of her two children, 16-year-old Tylee Ryan and 7-year-old JJ Vallow. She also faces charges in connection to the death of her husband's first wife, 49-year-old Tammy Daybell. Vallow's husband, Chad Daybell, faces similar charges and will have a trial of his own at a later date. Well, law and crime correspondent Gigi McKelvey is outside that Ada County Courthouse as we speak. And Gigi, thank you again for joining us. I have so many questions. Tell us, what is the atmosphere like inside the courthouse today?
Well, we had a big revelation this morning, which is the hair that was found on the duct tape with JJ's body belonged to Lori Vallow, which was a pretty big deal. Now, what surprised me the most is that the defense did not ask the witness, well, they lived together. Is it possible this was just transfer? That wasn't even brought up. They talked about her training and how you extract DNA, but that was one question I thought was missing from that cross exam.
And did they explain how long it was? Was it found pretty securely wrapped in the body, or just did it focus on the hair?
It was found on duct tape, and we know that there were huge amounts of duct tape covering JJ's body from his face to his elbows down to his hands and his ankles. They didn't specify where that was found, but just that it was found on duct tape. So we've been wondering, is there anything tying her to either the murder or the wrapping of the body? And we found out today, at least in some capacity, that hair belonged to her that was found on that duct tape, and they would trace evidence after they doing the autopsy, and just a big revelation. We really thought there was no DNA connection to her whatsoever in this case.
Yeah. Let me ask you, before I ask you what the DNA analysts had to tell the jury besides this bombshell revelation, what was the jury's reaction, if you could?
In notes, we've had a technical test on key dates and where it was and where it traveled to and that sort of thing. So they've been, very focused. We're hearing a lot of different times and just a lot of sticking with them. Oddly enough, Lori kind of has just been smiling, laughing with her attorneys and writing a lot. But even when it was announced that DNA, it was 7 trillion. I don't even know the number. It's astronomical, that it was hers. 1 out of 7 trillion chance that it's not hers. She had no reaction. And in fact, about 30 seconds later, whispered something to her attorney, kind of giggled and started writing on her notepad.
Well, we know that duct tape, the sticky side, is great for getting DNA evidence, taking hair, taking fingerprints. So what else did the DNA analysts have to say about anything else that may have been on the duct tape?
There really wasn't much other than the hair that was focused on today. She went through the procedure of how, due to the fact that there was decomposition with the body, they had to wash that strand of hair. And she went through the process of how they get that hair ready to extract the DNA profile. It was a partial DNA profile, but it came right back to Lori Vallow. So her testimony was over. And then now we have an FBI analyst on the stand who's going through all these location pings, as well as purchases that Alex Cox made a key date on October 9th, 2019, the day that Tammy Daybell was shot at by Alex himself.
Okay, so that's another witness on the stand.
Okay, so girls, what do you think?
One thing I took from that I hadn't seen before. I hope my service is okay. I'm about to go back outside and it gets choppy.
No,
in the
you're
house.
fine. You sound perfect.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So one thing I took from that was he had duct tape all over his body. I didn't know that. She said like elbows, legs. That was interesting. And I'm I'm glad that it was Lori's hair, that they were able to prove that. However, I think the defense can explain it away because I mean it was that Lori JJ lived with Lori. You know what I mean? His clothes came from Lori's. That so I don't know.
Crime Curious, any thoughts?
I guess my biggest concern, or the thought that's in the forefront of my mind, is just the way that Chad was so not worried about it. It really does make me wonder if he knew that, you know, it wasn't going to have anything to do with him, and if that's going to help him, you know, on his trial. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's
He
a
was
That
pretty
concerns me.
nonchalant about it.
Right. And that just, to me, that's a level of confidence that you get if you, you know, if you basically just look the other way while Lori and Alex handled their business and used your yard, which, you know, I'm not saying he's innocent by any stretch. I mean, I always go back to the raccoon text. Always.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You know, but he seemed pretty confident that, you know,
Yeah.
that was going to be for Lori.
How could he be that confident? You know, that's crazy.
Well, there's only two ways that you can be confident. All right. One is if you had zero to do with it. So, and you were not there, and there's no way that they can put you there because you are actually innocent, right? Not a technicality, but actual innocence. That's one way. The other way is if you were there, but you knew that you had no part in handling any of the tape. And that very likely that the hair on that was going to come back is either going to be JJ's own hair, Lori's hair, or Alex's hair. But I while I was running, I left my drink in my daughter's room, like a big dummy. But anyway, while I was running over there, did they happen to talk about who they compared the samples to?
I don't think so. All I remember, all I remember thinking I wanted to tell you is that she said 11 billion wrong.
I don't appreciate that, Crime Curious. You know, now I can't take complete credit for 11 billion. It is from a Saturday Night Live skit. It's a Jeopardy skit, and it's a word that I think it's Burt Reynolds. They're told to, it's Final Jeopardy. They're told to write any number. Any number will do. And I believe Burt writes, it's either Burt or Sean Connery who writes 11 billion.
I love it. I say it all the time now.
I love it too. I think it might be Sean Connery because I think he wrote 11 billion, and then underneath it, I think he wrote "Shuck it, Trebek." You know, which he's always fucking with Trebek. So anyway,
Yeah, I don't remember hearing who they compared it to. Do you, Allie?
No.
But I know.
Melanie,
it was Lori. Lori was one of the people they used, obviously. Melanie Gibb was another person that they used as a comparison.
Yeah, I don't
They
think
ruled her out
in the video, but was that
I haven't.
what was the other thing they tested her like for that we were just talking about the other day? Wasn't there something else too?
It was DNA on the like the tools that were found in the shed. The pickaxe.
Yep. You're right. That's what it was. I actually did not know that they tested. If I did, the hair, and I might have heard it, but we've talked about so much. I don't remember it. It didn't stick. So
yes.
Yeah, I have such a hard time with Melanie Gibb. And like you were talking about earlier, with the things that they truly believe, you know, the more I learn about their beliefs and practices and the things that they were doing and saying and convincing other people of, you know, Melanie wasn't a bystander. You know, I mean, the more I understand about what they believe, the more I side eye some of these witnesses.
Oh yeah. Well,
There
even oh
Oh,
sorry.
sorry. Go ahead, Allie, go ahead.
Just gonna say quickly, even Joe Ryan's sister, which is Ty Lee's aunt, she has a YouTube channel, and yesterday she was also sat at in the witnesses. She's like, no, no, no. You knew these kids were missing. You knew about this zombie stuff, and you did nothing. I don't want to hear it now. Don't get up on the stand crying now.
Right.
I think I have to you know that I agree. My stance has always been, when I've been listening to these witnesses, how many how close to the inner circle were they? And the only way that I can sort of suss that out, because what I will say is that there have been several witnesses that participated on some level or another in casting and whatever they were doing, right? Um, but they weren't always there. So I listen to their testimony, and I hear when they ask who else was there. And that's how I've sort of kind of tried to figure out who was the real inner circle. Who was the closest to Chad and Lori. And what I have found is I think a lot of people at first, hey everyone, I'm so glad to see everybody. I'm sorry we got a little bit of a late start and kind of a hectic start, and I didn't greet anybody in the chat, but I am glad everybody is here. I just wanted to say that before I forget. Also, all right. So anyway, I have to not look at chat right now because I'm about to get on my soapbox. I really thought that the hierarchy was essentially Chad, Lori, and then the next in command was Alex. But now, having listened to some other witnesses, I'm almost thinking that I think Melanie Gibb outranked Alex Cox. I think he was there for one purpose and one purpose only, and that was to be, for lack of a better word, the enforcer.
The muscle.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. And I think that they knew a long time ago that he was going to be sacrificed. And I wonder if he knew himself.
I do too.
Allie and I have talked about that quite frequently, and I have to we I my conclusion, I'm very skeptical that Alec was unalived by anybody other than his own hand. I'm
Yeah.
almost wondering if he took himself out,
Right.
because it was part of the sacrifice that was required.
Right. Just part of the plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah. I did want to play, just because this is Tammy's birthday. I did want to play. It's only 13 minutes, and I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. Um, a little bit of Samantha Gwilliam, because this is her sister, and I actually think there's some really important information in here, with respect to, first and foremost, Tammy. We don't know a whole lot about Tammy, and I always think that it's really sad in these cases, because I bet you if we were to get the transcript from the Etecia Stauch trial, right? I would be very curious about how many times Gannon's name was mentioned versus Letitia. And I think that the victims sometimes well, not sometimes, a lot of times gets lost in all of this. And we're so consumed by, because let's be honest, when you hear the things that are coming out about this, the castings and what they believed and how they went about, you know, casting out evil spirits and whatnot, you're kind of like, it's so outlandish that you're sort of that's just at the forefront of your mind. And what we've forgotten is that there were 4 victims here, because I do believe, and although nobody's been charged for it at this time because they can't be, I not that they, well, no, Lori is. She's not in Idaho. She's got to go answer her questions, or answer for Charles's death. I frankly think there should be more people, but whatever. Anywho, um, we don't know that much about them. We don't know that much about JJ, really, or Tylee, or Gannon. Like, I don't know what Gannon wanted to be when he grew up. I would love to know that kind of thing.
I do, only because it and you do too. You
Oh,
probably.
that's right, a YouTuber.
I was like, yep, and you do too. You just forgot.
I do, or what his favorite subject in school was,
Right.
or what his favorite food, all those things,
Yes, I completely agree, because all the focus we're focused on the crime, obviously, but also the villain, for a lack of a better word or whatever, um, gets all the focus, and I think that's a really really good point. It's true.
Right. And yeah, and to this thing about Chad or about the hair and Lori living in the home. Well, that would have been an excellent question for the defense to ask on cross, yet they didn't. I mean, why didn't they ask that question? That would be the most obvious question to ask. You mean you found the child's mother's hair on on her child? He lives in the home with his mother. Which
Right.
I don't think that's a good reason, and I kind of think the reason it wasn't asked is because I don't think they wanted the expert witness to go into the layers of duct tape, and
Yeah, but
on which layer did they find the duct tape.
right, but wasn't it her duct tape too? Oh, you mean like, was it? Yeah, but I don't know. I still think, I don't know.
If
That's a good point, though. I guess that makes sense. That would have
yeah,
to be the
I
only,
mean,
because why else wouldn't they? That makes no sense to me. It's like, hello, it's her from her house, her duct tape. He washes his clothes there.
yeah,
I hope Jen's okay. He doesn't wash
yeah,
his clothes. His clothes are washed there.
right. Well, I've been through this whole hairs thing before in a different case, right? And the thing of it is, if that's the case, right? If it was simply a transfer, then you would expect to find other people's hair from the home on that duct tape as well, including Tylee's,
Yeah, that's true.
but they didn't. So I feel like there's something to be said. There she is. There's something to be said about the fact that they didn't ask that, and perhaps why they wouldn't ask that, because that would be my question. How many other hairs were found?
I'd like to
And
ask a question, because, yeah, it doesn't, to your normal person who's on the jury,
Mhm.
the same thing we thought, like,
Right.
Hmm.
It wasn't, Mrs. O. The defense never asked that question on cross. They didn't ask, which I think I can't imagine why they wouldn't. Yes, this is interesting, and this is something I would like to explore more, but I can't get into it this show because I really want to cover this situation with Tammy. And then, Ellie, what else did I tell you I wanted to look at tonight? I've already
Oh,
forgotten.
tonight, really, you said just after we listened to her sister's testimony. Next is all you've told us, but I know you also want to get into the dates and the Mormon stuff, but not tonight. Or
No, not tonight. No, I want to do that in a separate show. But I remember when I was on your live, I was saying
oh,
what I wanted to play, and now I don't remember what I even said.
let me think for a second. I was thinking of something you said, like, on this live. Hold on.
All right. Well, you think about that, and we're going to play this. Let me put the
Okay.
subtitles back on. All right, here we go.
And Your Honor, before we get started, I would note that Ms. Williams is a victim matter.
Very well. I was made aware of that. I don't believe the exclusionary rule would apply in this case, so I don't need to inquire as to whether or not any of this trial has been observed by this particular witness. So with that in mind, I'll just advise Ms. Williams, if you would please make audible responses, verbal responses to any question, and avoid talking at the same time as anyone questioning you. That'll help us keep a clear record. And with that, Ms. Blake, you can inquire on direct.
Thank you, Your Honor. Will you please state your name and spell your last name?
Samantha Gwilliam, Gwilliam.
Are you related to Tammy Daybell?
Yes, I am. She's my sister.
Do you recall being contacted by law enforcement about a pet cemetery on Tammy and Chad Daybell's property in Idaho?
Yes.
Were you aware if Tammy had a pet cemetery?
Yes, I knew she had one. We had seen it when we had gone up to visit.
And I would ask that the witness be shown State's Exhibit 23A. I have 3 copies, so one for the court counsel, and then if we can have the witness shown one. Thank you. And when you talk about a pet cemetery, do you know where it was located on the property?
Yes, it was on their property to the side of the red barn. They had a fire pit that we did have marshmallow roasts at, and there was a fence with a little dog statue next to it. My niece's dog was buried there, and that's why they put the dog statue on top of it.
And that photo that you've been shown, does that appear to be an accurate depiction of the property as you knew it?
Yes.
And Your Honor, I would ask for the admission of State's Exhibit 23A. I'm not sure that it was previously admitted. Another witness may have used it.
Any objection?
No objection.
I don't believe it was previously admitted, so 23A is now admitted.
And if I could have permission to publish that to the jury?
Yes.
And I think there may be a pointer up there.
There is.
Can you indicate where you knew the pet cemetery to be located?
Right here in this little fence, you can see the little dog statue right at the base. This is the fire pit.
And how did you know, or I guess you've indicated that, was it common for Tammy to have a pet cemetery?
Yes, we all grew up with pets, and they were like our family. So when they pass away, we always buried them on our properties.
And that property in particular was, do you know whether that property is 202 North 1900 East in Fremont County, Idaho?
Correct.
Did Tammy love animals?
She did.
Do you know if she loved them her whole life?
Yeah, we always had pets, guinea pigs, she had ducks, like the whole gamut. We had all of them.
Did animals seem to love Tammy?
Yeah, she was a person that was, they were just drawn to her, and she loved taking care of them.
Was that the same way with people?
Yeah, she was a little bit of an introvert, but she loved people and loved taking care of them. She loved her grandkids.
And Your Honor, I'm going to ask that the witness be shown State's Exhibit 298. I believe defense counsel has already been provided a copy.
Sometimes I enjoy when they whisper, because then I'm
Do you
trying to
recognize
figure
that
out
photo?
what's going on
Yes, I do.
behind the scenes,
And
and
who
I
is that?
kind of
It's my
like it.
sister.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admission of Exhibit 298.
Any objection?
It does help you
Can I
picture.
ask a question?
It
Yes,
does.
go ahead, Mr. Archibald.
When was this picture taken? Do you know?
What
It was
difference
taken
does that
at
make?
the wedding of one of her children.
Do you know about what year this picture was taken?
Hold on just a second. Within the year or two of her passing.
Maybe 2017?
Yeah,
or-
probably 2017. I can't remember. All of her children got married quickly. The
I
older
mean,
kids
it's not
within a year
20
of each
years
other.
old,
And
Mr.
so,
Archibald. I
within
know
the same
that's where
year.
you're going with
So it was
this.
all, within the year or two of her passing, because she just started having grandchildren.
With that foundation, Your Honor, I don't have any objection. to
Oh,
the exhibit.
wonderful. Thank you,
All right,
Mr.
did you-
Archibald.
Okay, Exhibit
Appreciate
298
you.
is admitted.
Thank you. And may I publish it for the jury?
Yes.
Could you publish it for the not jury, the audience that's watching at home? We'd like to see. I feel awful for Tammy. I do. And I feel awful for, there's a trickle down
children are
effect
in
to
your
this
family?
crime for sure.
There's 5 of us kids.
Just
Where did
like
Tammy
with
fit in that
Leticia.
line?
She was the second oldest.
And how many brothers?
We have 3 brothers.
You and Tammy were the only girls?
Yeah, we were the only sisters.
Were you close growing up?
Yes, we're only 4 years apart, and
It's
so
at
we
the judge's
were
discretion,
far enough apart we
Danielle.
didn't fight, and close enough together that we got along really well.
And did you maintain that closeness as you entered into adulthood?
Yes, we talked every day and saw each other every day, and we did everything together with our children.
And do you recall when Tammy started dating Chad Daybell?
Yeah, I do.
Did you know him from before?
Yes, his family lives in our hometown, and so I went to school with his brothers. He was older than me. He was the same age as my oldest brother, so he was not one that I hung around with, but I knew him.
Did you like Chad when she started dating him?
Yeah, he was a really nice guy.
Did you feel like he treated Tammy well?
Yeah, he did.
And then they ultimately ended up married?
Yeah.
And throughout their marriage, did you maintain contact with Chad and Tammy?
Yes, we were very close.
Was Chad in fact friends with your husband?
Yes.
Prior to Tammy moving to Idaho, how close did she live to you?
We were 2 blocks away from each other.
How often did you see her?
Every day.
Do you know how many kids Tammy and Chad have together?
Yeah, 5.
And you mentioned earlier Tammy's also a grandmother?
Yes.
Did Tammy want to move to Idaho?
At first, no. She doesn't like change, and all of her family was there. So in Springville, so it was not something she wanted to do at first.
Do you know whose idea it was for them to move?
It was Chad's.
Did Tammy work prior to moving to Idaho?
Yes, she did.
What did she do for work?
At the time that they moved, she was a special ed secretary at the high school. And previous to that, she worked at the elementary school as a computer teacher.
Was she good with computers?
Oh, she was amazing with them.
She was the go-to person?
She was the go-to person. If any of us had a question about something, that she could answer it, and she would pick up any new software and could figure it out. She was self-taught and was very smart.
And the 2 jobs you mentioned, she worked closely with children?
Yes, she did.
When they first got married, do you know what Chad did for work?
He was working for the Springville City Cemetery for the Parks Department. He was part of the cemetery upkeep crew. They helped prepare all the graves, and they took care of the cemetery, upkeep.
Was he also involved in ever digging graves that you know of?
Yeah, that was part of their job, is that they would dig all the graves that came through for any of the burials at the cemetery. Eventually, he came back and was the sexton at that cemetery, at that Springville. It was at the Evergreen Cemetery in Springville. And then eventually he was a sexton at the Spanish Fork Cemetery.
How did you find out about your sister's passing?
Chad called me the morning that she passed away.
Do you recall what he told you?
He told me that she had been really sick, and that she'd been coughing all night, and had gotten up and with a coughing fit around midnight, 1 o'clock, and had gone back to sleep. And he was awakened by her that morning when she rolled out of bed dead.
Did that make any sense to you?
No, because I had just seen her 2 weeks previous to that, and she wasn't that sick at all. She was very healthy.
Did she indicate to you any activities that she was participating in?
Yeah, she was in a clogging class, and she was showing us some of her clogging moves, but she was also preparing to run a smaller race in their town. So she was trying to stay fit and healthy.
And how old was she?
She wasn't 50 yet. We were going to get ready to celebrate her 50th birthday.
When she came to visit in October, was that a normal visit?
No, it was out of the blue.
Did anyone come with her?
No, she came by herself, and that was unusual because Tammy didn't like to travel alone.
Did she tell you why she came down to visit?
Chad told her that she needed to come visit her family.
Was she able to see all of the siblings?
No, it was me and my mom and dad.
Did Tammy ever indicate to you that she had suspicion that Chad was having an affair?
No, she never said anything about it. If she did have any inkling, I think he probably brushed it away.
Okay, that's the part I wanted you guys to hear the most, because you see that admission? That's very, very interesting. That's very, very key. What do you think, Allie?
Oh my God. Oh, it's just so sad to hear her voice breaking like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, just knowing and like she was healthy. She was about to do a marathon. She was showing clogging moves. I mean,
Right.
it's crazy because I hear her crying, and I was thinking as it was playing, they said that Chad was distraught. The ambulance drivers had no reason to suspect anything because he was so distraught that it seemed like very genuine emotion. And we talked about, couldn't he be distraught and also be the cause of it? But no wonder I feel bad for the family because they probably believed that, even though it was suspicious, they probably believed him at first. It's sad.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think, Jen?
I just found myself thinking that I really wish we could see Lori's face while people are testifying, particularly about Tammy, because I have to imagine that she saw herself as Chad's wife, and Tammy was insignificant in her mind and her plans and her world, and that's her husband, not Tammy's. And I just, I wish that we could see her face during the testimony. Is it
Yes.
disgust? Is it disgust? Is it indifference? Is it jealousy? I mean, the only thing we know for sure is it's not remorse.
Right.
Well, Dougie, I have it sped up just a little
God,
bit
no.
so that
It too.
we can. That's why we have it sped up. So that's why it might sound a little rapid to you. But my other thing that I wanted to point out was not only was she healthy, but that she didn't know about the affair.
But you know what? Charles emailed her. So how
That
did
doesn't mean that she got it. She could have. Chad could have interceded.
Yeah,
I
got to refresh on the details of that to know, because I don't remember. But I know he did attempt an email. You're right.
He did. But I think that the prevailing thought, and I have to agree with this, is that he interceded. But I feel like she was close with her sisters. And I feel like if Chad was cheating, I think she would have told her sisters if she had suspicions. I think she would have.
I don't know. I mean, maybe, maybe not. I mean, it's my understanding that the bond with your husband, particularly in their religion, trumps all.
That's a good point. That is a good point. However, they also encourage a lot of the men in the family have the priesthood, and so they would encourage them to seek the men out, like, to talk to her father about it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
They would
Yeah, good
encourage
point.
to talk to the family. So I'm thinking that
yeah, but would she do that? And plus,
that's the thing, we don't know enough about Tammy. My personal belief is this. I don't believe, I can't say for sure one way or the other whether Tammy knew about the affair or not, but the way that it's been described before by like Chad's sister-in-law, that Tammy really thought that Chad hung the moon,
Right.
and that she probably would have not been happy about it, but she also Heather brought up the subject of polygamy. And I have often wondered if, and my other theory was that I don't think that Lori ever wanted to, and I don't think she wanted to be the second wife, because she would want to be the first wife, who's the legal wife, whose marriage is recognized by the law, just in case things go sideways. Maybe the world doesn't end like you anticipated. I mean, they got a lot of things in their predictions wrong, and you're going to need money in between now and then. And if things go sideways, and let's say Chad has an accident, a legitimate accident, and he dies first, right? The first wife is going to get everything if he has anything. Do you know what I mean? She would be entitled to it. So of course, Lori, that's what I think. And I think that I think it was a trade-off. I think that the deal was that Lori would consent to JJ and Tylee not being unalived if Chad would unalive Tammy. And that's what I think. And I think the reason that Alex Cox's phone pinged around that time, when she was the first incident in October, when Tammy was approached, and even when she was actually found dead, was because he was there checking up on things. He was making sure that Chad held up his end of the bargain. And if he didn't, he was going to, I don't know if he would have taken matters in his own hands, but he would have definitely reported back to his sister.
I agree. It's so creepy that he was, up by their house when the night that she passed away. Just creeps me out. And I really want to know what happened to Alex, because like you know, that like we talked about, the EMT worker said that they had never came across someone foaming pink stuff like that, but Alex and Tammy both were. So
Right.
that really is weird. But I think like what you said earlier, Jennifer, that about, I think Alex did it himself. I really do.
Yeah.
At this, I never did before. I always wondered, how did they get to him? But now, yeah, after like we talked about it like a week or two ago, Jen, yeah, I'm thinking he did it himself.
I feel like if I could stomach listening, if I could ever stomach listening to that, the entirety of that blessing that Chad gave to Alex, I would believe that I believe there's probably clues in there. The
Yeah.
truth of the matter is it's very difficult for me to stomach it because I don't know another way to say this, but his cadence in that blessing sounds a lot like those tapes or those audio recordings of Warren Jeffs, and it unnerves me to the point where I can only listen for like a second or two at a time, and then I gotta like do something else really quick. At some point, I will have to make myself listen to it all the way through because I do believe that there are clues in there. And one of the things that Lori's former friend was saying is because she was grilled pretty hard on Cross, and one of the things that she was asked was, basically, weren't they praying to Jesus? Why'd you think it was so weird? Basically, right? And she said they didn't pray to Jesus. There was a lot of, oh, thank you. Oh, look, Amelia Sparkles and Pointer Lover did their membership milestones. Thank you, guys. 14 months for Amelia and a month for Pointer Lover. Thank you so much.
I'm glad I wasn't watching chat, and usually I am, but yeah, because I would remind you, but usually
I know you're my reminder, but I caught it out of the corner of my eye on the phone.
yeah.
But yeah, I feel like there's clues there. But anyway, she described that not as a prayer because they were specifically, one time was for Tammy and one time was for Charles. And she described it as aggressive words. This is the part, and I have to say this, and I want to get you guys' thoughts on this. What I have noticed when it comes to the testimony of people who attended these castings is they're very vague about what the actual casting entailed. They don't want to talk about what words were actually used. They don't want to talk about what was actually said and done. And it doesn't, there's something that just, I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on it.
That part reminds me of Scientology.
Thank you.
It does.
And I don't know if part of it is, I know that in the Mormon religion that what happens in the temple is very, very sacred, and you don't discuss it with people that are not of the Mormon faith. And I don't know how low, I don't know how deep it goes as far as like, can you discuss it amongst your family? Because what I understand is that when they're in temple, whatever is going on there is essentially it's a covenant between them and God, and it's extremely sacred. And I know that they don't even I know when the temple was raided that was built in Texas at Warren Jeff's property, when the FBI went inside the temple, the Mormons there were just horrified because they're not Mormon and they're going in such a holy and sacred place to them. But I'm wondering if part of them not talking about it is because on some level at the time, which I don't understand, I get it at the time, but not now. Maybe they regarded it as something similar, as some type of covenant, but they know it not to be.
Maybe they're embarrassed. I think her mic came out, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah, sounds like it.
For a second, I thought I lost signal. I was out.
I have a question. Have we, see, because you know I've been so engrossed in the Stout case that I really need you guys to help me catch up, and I appreciate this so much. But have we heard from Julie Rowe lately?
You know what? No.
No.
I was wondering about if she was going to testify. And I wanted to say, I'm so glad that you're interested in talking about other cases with us. I think that's awesome. I love
Me
it.
too. I was excited when you asked for the link because I didn't think you wanted it because it's Vallow. But then you said you did, and I was very excited.
No rest for the afflicted, right?
None. Well, I just find it peculiar that they all can't talk about the same thing. Now, the last thing that I heard from Julie Rowe was, and it's not like she contacted me directly. It's not like she hit me up and was like, "Hey, Jen Lou, I just want to give you a heads up. This is where I sit now." The last thing I heard from her though was from the sins of the mother of my mother or the mother. I can't remember which one it is. She was in there, and it's her choice of words is interesting as well. I'm always fascinated by the words that people choose to use because she doesn't, in my opinion, and this was just my perspective, she doesn't really like go super hard at Chad as far as like admonishing his beliefs. What she says more is that like he's Chad's confused, something to that effect. I remember it because I thought about it and I was like, what did she just say?
Right, he's been deceived.
Yeah, there you go. That's what she said. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I thought it was an odd choice of words because isn't he supposed to be the one who's doing the deceiving?
Right.
Yeah, but remember at one point she was sitting there telling the public, Chad would never do this. He's innocent. I know, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like she was one of his biggest.
I know. That's why I'm so confused about it. It's like the people that were part of it and the people that were supportive, once they get up on the stand, they will only go so far, which sort of makes me think that maybe do they still believe? It makes me wonder. Are they still believers?
I mean, I think once you go that deep, even when you start to question it, I think it's real hard to backtrack to that extreme, you know?
Yes.
And I remember the first time I heard Julie Rowe in her car talking about, you know, her visions and, you know, or whatever they're called, and saying how, I mean, wasn't she also one of Chad's wives in a previous probation?
I think that Chad flirted with all of the women in this manner, and it's except for I have to say, except for Lori's friend who testified yesterday. She had an even bigger role. She was married to Jesus. Thank you, Doopy Daisy. Doopsy Daisy. Welcome to membership. Glad to have you. Welcome to the ward.
Laura, she did say that like Chad told her all that stuff before he met Lori. Then when he met Lori, he like just screw you, Julie. Yeah.
Well, I think Julie was, how do I put this? I'm trying to be kinder. I don't know because I feel like I was so harsh all week that I kind of got it out of my system and now I don't have any mean left. Don't worry. It'll be right back for tomorrow morning. And don't you guys worry. I will be streaming closing arguments. Let me think. I feel like the way that he was with Julie was he basically exploited her. He saw the attention and the notoriety and frankly the financial gain that she was getting from telling her near-death story. And he then took that and took his own whatever it was that happened to him and embellished it and embellished it and embellished it. And you know, Julie kind of comes across to me as somebody who would not want to play second fiddle, where Lori wants to have the appearance of playing second fiddle, but is secretly manipulating everything. Do you know what I mean? Where Julie seems like the type of personality that wants to be known as the one calling the shots.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh man, I had a thought, like a really good one, and it totally left my head. Maybe it'll come back.
I hope it comes back.
It was a good one too. Shit.
Yeah, I remember thinking that to me, when I first saw those videos of Julie in the car, I remember thinking that she was clearly jealous of Lori. And that's not even to say that she was like in love with Chad or anything, but I felt like, she had earned a place in his life, and that just went away when Lori showed up, and I think that pissed her off.
She was replaced.
I remember.
Right.
So Chad, he had this near death experience, and he said that he was closer to the veil because of this and all of that stuff, right? And a lot of people believed him. As a matter of fact, psychic Reverend Donna had an interview with a guy that used to help Chad with the preparing of people meetings and different things like that, and it was interesting. He was kind of talking about, like, he talked as if he looked up to Chad. It was crazy. But the thing is that Donna said in that live that she's like, he does have abilities. Like he does, like he lies about it and exaggerates it, but he does have some. And I know she's a psychic, and I would never even bring the two together into true crime. But the thing with her is that she has become famous for so accurately predicting this case, and even worked with the law enforcement and everything with it. So it's hard not to almost intertwine the two, especially since she's been involved with law enforcement and stuff.
Well, that's true. That's a good point. I mean, she has been right. And I'll say this. I do think that there are people, I think all of us on some level have some level of intuition. I just think that's like
Right.
we came packaged that way. That's part of the deal, right? But some of us got like the extended warranty, we got the upgrade option. And some people are far more sensitive than others. And I think what it really boils down to with Chad, in my opinion, is he might have a little sensitive to him. He might have been somebody that was a very deep thinker. I mean, think about being a gravedigger. I mean, let's be honest. It's not like this is 1837 or anything like that. Okay. He wasn't actually manually out there with a shovel digging the grave. He had equipment, and it's not the only thing that he did, but in that capacity. But it does put you around death a lot. And I know that even just covering true crime, obviously, because hello, that's part of it, puts you talk about death a lot, and it does make you think. And I think some people, I'm some people, I will have some, like, when I'm pondering these things, mainly in the shower. Why I get my best ideas or clearest head, I don't know why, but I have some deep ass thoughts in the shower. And this is one of them, that I think that being around all of that death all of the time sort of makes you wonder more than the average human being about what's next. I think every human being, we are the only animals on the planet that actively fear death. That's the nice thing about being like a dog or a cat. They don't actively fear it. They don't think about it. They don't wonder what's next for them. They don't even, it's not a thought for them. How they know that, I don't know, but whatever. They don't have that thought. So for me, I wonder if he did have some deep thoughts because he was around death all of the time, but his intention was never good. Because for Chad, it seems like out on the surface, he wanted to appear humble. He didn't get his master's. He didn't do this, that, or the other in an effort to make more money, because that's not how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to be a servant and stay humble and whatnot, right? But inside his true feelings, he talked a lot about money. He was very concerned about money. I mean, he said that Lori was beautiful and loaded.
Just like we found out today, a few days before Tammy died, he upped her life insurance from $10,000 to the highest possible $130,000. That was 5 times her salary.
There was
Red
more
flag.
to that too. He also tried to get on Medicaid because in 2020
Yeah, I read
there
that.
there was a different things changed, and the income level and whatnot for adults, to cover adults, it
Andy
changed.
his income, right? That's
Hmm.
what he like lied about his
Yeah,
income.
he lied about his income, and she wanted his tax return information, and when she finally got it, he didn't qualify. But yeah, I thought that Chad telling and why I cannot remember her name, I don't know. I just have completely blanked out Lori's friend's name who Lori threatened to kill. For whatever reason, my brain will not let me remember her name at all.
Is it Audrey or is that?
Yes, yes, thank you, Audrey. Thank you. I didn't real. I thought
My
it was
brain was just
interesting that Jesus had a wife. When did that happen? I've never heard that Jesus was married before. I know the rumors about Mary Magdalena and all of that, but I've never heard that Jesus was married before.
well,
Or is it
maybe
Mary Magdalene? What I said? Yeah, Mary Magdalene. Yeah, that's her name.
maybe they mean like I don't freaking know. He wasn't, but maybe they're saying in the future he was. I don't know, or in the I don't know. In his future from like after the Bible, but
No,
before.
because Chad told Audrey she was married to Jesus in a past life,
That's what I
and
mean.
he was
After the
James.
Bible, but before us, or something. I don't know. That makes no sense to me. But maybe that would be the only way that he means. I don't know. I can't make sense of this shit because there is no making sense of some of this stuff.
Well, I guess if Jerry Springer went to heaven, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what I keep thinking about is an old quote from Hunter Thompson. I'm a huge Hunter Thompson nerd. It's a whole thing. But there's a quote from the Rum Diaries, and he says, "Human beings are the only creatures on Earth that claim a god, and the only living thing that behaves like it hasn't got one." I
He's
just thought
not
that was
wrong.
brilliant.
He's
Yeah, I
not
just thought that was
wrong.
brilliant.
And the Rum Diaries is really good. Okay, I know Amber Heard is in it and everything, and
She
she's not
ruined
good
it.
in it, but the movie itself is good. If you can just like try to ignore the Amber Heard parts as much as you can, she's kind of integral to it. But whatever, just do your best. I can
Right.
block her out.
Do you guys? I saw the other day like a thing. Watch it. It was like a News thing that was talking about an upcoming Marvel movie that she was going to be in. But will she still be able to get jobs? Because I would not expect that after this. But
The only Marvel movie that I can think of that she would be, no, let me think, is Aquaman. Let me Google, because it's hard for me
no,
sometimes to keep.
Marvel. It's not. But yeah, maybe that one. But
So then Aquaman is not Marvel. Then he's DC.
yeah, it is. You're right. But it's an upcoming movie, like a superhero movie. And I know she was in Aquaman, but it
She
was
was supposed to be in Aquaman too.
right. And
then they cut her scenes, is what I heard, but then I don't know.
Me too. So I wonder if they gave her scenes back or limited. I don't know, but there was something. But I
Okay.
wouldn't expect her to be able to get a job.
I don't know. You know how we start out as babies and then we grow old and then we kind of become babies again?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's a lot like Amber Heard's career. And I think that she started I think that she wait, it gets better. I think that she started her career by giving jobs,
Yeah.
jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And then she got to a point where she was getting jobs, and now I think that she's reverted back to a place where she just needs to focus on giving jobs.
There you go. That's a good way to be. Come full circle, Amber. It'll be
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
How will you start off as babies? Sorry, the way you explained that was so...
Unless you're Benjamin Button, and then you go
Right.
the other way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I just can't imagine her having a real strong career.
Yeah, me either.
I'll be surprised if she's in much of that movie or if they put her back or whatever. We'll see.
Well, she's just dangerous. I mean, I'm not even talking about in a personal setting, which is, obviously what happened with Johnny Depp, but in a professional setting, she's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's like, you're going to hire Letitia Stauch.
Yeah.
That's what, all the talk about Letitia and her attorney and the canoodling and, the cuddle session in court. All I could think about is like, oh, he's getting sued. Even though I'm sure
Yes.
he's not doing anything, if
That
there's
doesn't
even an
matter. She can still
appearance,
make an she can, she can still make a claim. You know how
right, if
that
there's an
goes.
appearance of wrongdoing, she's going to go after it as soon as she doesn't need you anymore.
Right.
It just, sorry, I didn't mean to Letitia the
No,
conversation.
I actually, I'm having a very hard time, and I'm sure I'm sure the people in the chat can hear it too. I'm having a hard time focusing on Vallow because I am still thinking about Letitia. It's the truth. I have so many things that I've been thinking since Dr. Lewis got off the stand, and just I think what it all boils down to for me was I feel like I don't understand why it was so difficult for Dr. Lewis to cite examples of DID like behavior or point out times when she was switching or thought she was switching or whatever it was that she used to base her diagnosis on or and on top of finding that she was sane or insane at the time of the crime. I don't understand why it was so difficult for Dr. Lewis to articulate that, and because that's what I wanted to hear. And I can't, I'm having a very difficult time moving past that. And as much as I want to talk about Tammy and I want to talk about Lori, Leticia, dang you, are still stuck in my crawl. Thanks, Leticia.
I was going to say Leticia is the Russian pronunciation.
Leticia.
Somebody left a comment right before I came over here. Somebody left a comment on my video and it said something in Spanish and then something in Russian. And I have to go find that comment and pin it because it
Yeah,
was
you do.
hilarious.
You
It was
do.
hilarious. Because I've been saying hasta la vista, Leticia, since before I knew about Maria Sanchez.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love it. I don't think that, let's just talk about Letitia for a minute, okay? I can't focus, and so I'm not going to be able to get through it, and I'll change the title after the fact. But at the end of I really feel like it was brilliant on the part of the prosecution to play those videos or the clips from her sanity evaluation with Dr. Lewis. It was very clear that the um, defense wasn't going to do it. And now I feel like the jury got enough of those that they're not going to have to watch much. I can't imagine that they're going to watch much more of that. And I think deliberations are going to be quite quick. Although I am curious about one thing, and only you would know this, Jennifer, because you've been there. Does Colorado pay for the jury's lunch?
Yes.
Okay. See, I'm curious at what's on the menu for tomorrow. If it were me, I would deliberate until after lunch just so I could have the state pay for lunch one more time, especially if like Friday's a good day. Remember Fridays at school? That's the only time I ever bought lunch when I was a kid was Fridays, because Friday school lunch was good. They had that square piece of pizza that God knows what that was made of. I don't even think that's anything remotely resembling pizza, but whatever it was so dadgum good. Or the school hamburger. That was another thing that was good. That was also probably not meat. It was probably horse or something they were feeding us back in the 80s. But that shit was good. Yes.
The burritos.
That stuff was good. And I wish that this is a good question. Angela wants to know. Whoops, I highlighted the wrong one. Has anyone cleaned up the audio on Dr. Lewis's interview? Where are we with that?
I got a message while I was on the live earlier that it is just quite simply beyond repair. And I've looked all over the internet trying to find somebody who was able to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I can find, I mean, like it's a little louder in places and there's some noise reduction in places, but it is still absolute freaking gibberish.
Okay.
that easily. I could do that in 2 seconds, but
Me too. This is what I think happened. I'm really thinking about the theory of that the wheelchair did something to the audio, because I will say this. There
Mhm.
wasn't just problems with the audio of the actual interview itself. The whole courtroom audio was messed up.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of wondering if something got unplugged when they were moving Dr. Lewis around so she could be.
definitely as Law and Crime cleared it up.
Yeah, it's possible.
Oh,
Oh,
Law and Crime has cleared it
to a
up?
place where we can understand it?
I'm
Oh,
going over there right now. Let's
Oh,
go
yeah.
look.
ooh.
Let's go look.
And
Yeah.
if they don't, we'll like when we do FOIAs, like, and I know you're putting the whole file. You've been putting the whole file on your website, which is an excellent resource for
Yeah.
any covering or following the case. So you guys know crimecurious.com. But would we get these in the FOIA, or when you get the like?
Yeah, so that was one of the questions that I had for Chris tonight,
Oh,
because he's going to help me get my hands on the transcripts, which normally transcripts take about 2 weeks, but even if you expedite it, it's going to be like 4 or 5 days. And that's only after they're available. So we're looking at a few weeks probably before I get my hands on the transcripts.
I remember
Um,
what you said, but you can tell us again just to,
Oh,
because
yeah. Yeah, so then basically I guess it's up to the judge what does get released in discovery and what doesn't. And it goes back to that conversation we were having earlier about how much information does get put out there and who decides it. Like, let's think about all of the pictures of NK and all of her, naughty parts were probably on Chris's phone. Now, like we saw the bikini pictures and things like that, but they're not going to release the other pictures that they found. I mean, there's
right.
there's a lot, and that's true in any case.
Like
So the judge, what?
like autopsy photos.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's up to the judge, but he does ask for input from both the prosecution and the defense about, what to seal and what to release. So,
When,
we'll find out when we find out. What do you guys think? I have a question for you guys.
Okay.
Okay, so 4 closing arguments tomorrow. Who do you think is going to present the closing argument for the prosecution? Do you think it's Dave Young? Do you think it's Mike Allen?
Mike
Dave
Allen.
Young.
Okay, so that's 2 for Dave Young and 1 for Mike Allen. I definitely think it's going to be Dave Young.
He's
Um,
pretty much done all of this, he's done the bulk of the questioning of the questioning. It's not even the right word. You guys know what I mean. He's
But
done.
Mike Allen has been like the spokesperson for that office for this case, really, in the interview and stuff before he did. So you don't think? I wonder if they'll switch.
Yeah, I think Dave Young will do the closing. Michael Allen did, the opening.
Oh, okay.
But Dave Young is so much more. I'm not saying he has more passion than Michael Allen because I don't believe that to be true. But with the Dorothy Lewis testimony and with all that stuff, and he's the one who questioned Harley, and I feel like he's the one that incites more of an emotional response.
Yeah.
I feel like
Agree.
Michael Allen incites a more logical
Yes.
response, and I think that neither one of them are lacking either of those. I just think one's better than the other at the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what about for the defense? Who do you think is going to give the closing arguments for the defense?
Well, didn't they? And like, haven't I swear I've watched other cases where they've switched off. I wonder if they would do something like that, or if it would just be one.
Depends on what the judge will allow. Sometimes the judge does allow them they'll give them 90 minutes and they'll say, I keep wanting to say tortellini, but I know it's not Tellini. Let's say Tellini goes first for the defense, and he might, and if the judge allows it for them to share it, he might say, okay, judge, can you let me know when I've hit like 20 minutes or something like that. Do you know what I mean? And then the judge might, then the judge will say you've hit your time or whatever, and then he'll bring in Mr. Cook.
Interesting.
I don't think that they will have Mr. Cook up there, and here's why. Because it's Cook that's been canoodling, correct?
Yes.
And I don't think that they're going to have him. I don't think it'd be a good idea to have him up there. They have been watching. The jury is watching everything. And if we're seeing it, if we're distracted by it, so is the jury. And I think that it will likely that all that giggling, particularly during those Google searches, that was highly inappropriate just on its face because it's not good courtroom etiquette, period, right? It's rude.
Right.
But the subject matter that they happen to be talking about at that very moment, and where was Gannon during this point in time when these things were going on, it was deeply offensive. And I think that Mr. Cook should sit in his chair tomorrow and shush.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put him up there.
Yeah, I think I think that the closing arguments are going to be really good. And I expect, especially from the prosecution, I expect for them to be very powerful. And the reason why is because, okay, when on Monday, when we had Kevin Clark back up on the stand, I think it was his third time testifying. He's the one who now, so he's a criminal intelligence analyst, and he actually works for the Fourth Judicial District Attorney's Office. Back in 2020, he worked for the Colorado Springs Police Department, and he had all sorts of intelligence and surveillance and law enforcement and military prior to that. You know, I mean, he's the wild card, right? I mean, he's powerful. You know, when they were going through his testimony, that was really great Monday because it was just bam, 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 going through all the stuff and putting it in line. And that was almost to me like a pre-closing argument. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But they went through it so quickly, and they did the same thing when they cross-examined Dorothy Lewis on a couple of points. Like there was one point I remember where they asked Dorothy Lewis about Letitia, and you know they were talking about premeditation, and they asked about like the picture that she took at 8 whatever in the morning on January 27th, and doesn't that equal premeditation basically? And she was like, well, yes. Or did she take that picture as a proof of life? That's what it was. Did she take that photograph to prove that Gannon was alive that morning before they left the house? Yes. And then they moved right past it. And so all of those little things that I thought were huge, but they just went by so quickly. I feel like the only reason it was said like that during the testimony is because during closing arguments, that's going to be, along with many other things, one of those hard hitting points of the closing argument where they're like, even Dr. Lewis, so there are just, there are so many things, especially from Monday with Kevin Clark, that I feel like it was the appetizer,
Right. Right. I'm glad that they did that though with the at the end there like that, where they kind of they did tie it all together because I couldn't understand why they were talking about the extractions, right? And the Google searches and stuff, but then they weren't talking about the substance, what those texts were and stuff. And I was like, what is this? Where is that? What's happening here? I was very discombobulated and very confused. But there was a reason for it, and I'm glad that I'm glad he did it that way. I thought that was a brilliant, brilliant move on the part of the prosecution. And I know it was a team effort there. I know that they all, worked together on that.
Right. They'd have like an emotional piece of testimony, and then the next 3 witnesses would come up and testify that they were in charge of the extraction of the data, but they would never get into the data.
Right.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And I couldn't figure it out. I've never seen anything like that before,
Right.
but this might change some things.
Right.
Actually, I think it was really smart that they did it that way. Not only did it tie everything together very, very nicely, but when a prosecution breaks up data like that, that testimony is very dry and it's
Right.
very hard to follow
DNA,
sometimes.
same way.
Yes. But doing it the way this was done, and then you forget about it too when if they
Yep.
like if they would have presented it earlier, I promise you guys, obviously there's some of those Google searches that are going to stick in our minds forever for various reasons. I mean,
Yeah.
asking for a full face transplant. I'm surprised she didn't search Groupon codes for a full face transplant. You know what I'm saying? Girl was
Right. Did you lose your mic again?
Yep, she did. Mexican
Uh-oh.
cartel phone numbers, or like
Right.
find a what was it? Find a immigrant who will basically take the blame for my crime. I forget her words, but
Right. Yeah, how about guilty conviction near me?
how about that find an immigrant that will plead guilty or confess.
Right.
Like Letitia. Girl.
her cell phone number is funny too. It's like, what do you think? What are you expecting Google to give you, girl? Like,
Right.
You know what else I thought was wild about Letitia, now that I think more about this lawsuit that she's brought on about not
Mm-hmm.
being served her kosher meals and how it just
Uh-huh.
violates her, but how she's managed to sign other inmates on. And the reason this is curious to me is because she's basically been saying in those letters to people, and the like early on interviews that she could give, or some of the stuff that we know from like jail calls and whatnot, that she's
Mm-hmm.
basically being kept, in her words, because this is not how it works, but solitary confinement. She has no interaction with anybody else. Oh, you got no interaction with anybody else. And Letitia, how are you getting these other people to sign on and be a party to your lawsuit, ma'am? How are you communicating with them? Are you
Right.
taking the
And
water
she's
out
not
of your
being
toilet?
solitary. You know,
Exactly.
she's in her cell, right? She's in her
Right.
cell, and she's got at least well, she only the cells in El Paso County have two bunks, one bottom and one top. And part of her federal lawsuit was complaining about how, she's told them that for medical reasons, she cannot sleep on that top bunk. It's dangerous, and they are putting her life in danger. She doesn't want to sleep on the top bunk. The top bunk is terrible. Not that the bottom bunk is fantastic, but the top bunk is really close to these awful fluorescent lights. And if it sounds like I have personal experience, it's none of your business. But I know what I'm talking about. Research.
oh,
Research.
awful.
Okay. And like I said, I am an El Paso County voter. Right? I live in El Paso County. Okay. Anyway, it's a long story. It's not important. It was traffic related.
It's okay, but
Actually, it really was.
We're not
So I'll tell
talking
you.
about Crime Curious as a
Right. So I'll tell you, it was
history.
like between 10 and 13 years ago. And what happened is in 1999, when I was moving to Colorado, I got a ticket. I was driving a awesome little red sports car, and I was excited to move to Colorado and start this new life. I was in my early 20s. Anyway, I got a speeding ticket, forgot all about it. Legitimately forgot all about it. I didn't have my seatbelt on, and I got a speeding ticket. Fast forward to like 2010, when I had something else going on, and they went, "You understand you have a warrant for your arrest?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, what?" Yeah, from 1999, traffic violation.
God.
And so I did 8 days in the El Paso County Jail. Longest 8 days of my life.
Oh God, I bet it felt like an eternity.
It was awful. I was terrified. I know I sound like a major weenie right now. It was awful. But listen, that top bunk is no joke. Okay, so what they do is they take maxi pads and make them into eye masks to cover the light if you're on the top bunk, because it's really bright. They don't turn them off, right? Oh yeah, and then when you're out in the main area, there are hair braiding stations, there are eyebrow threading stations, and to do the eyebrow threading, they take the string off a tampon. And then there's like this special magical way that they twist, these two pieces of thread, and they're able to remove your unwanted eyebrow hairs.
That's
You know,
amazing.
and the food is not good. And I assure you, even though my little visit to the Hotel El Paso County was between 10 and 13 years ago, I assure you it is exactly the same as it was. Right? Even the food. Okay,
And
I have not had
evidently their peanut butter is threatening as well.
right,
Yeah.
and this kosher stuff was going on even back then. I have not eaten a bologna sandwich since 2010. Okay, I'm not gonna either. But on every Sunday they had pancakes. Okay, anyway,
Oh my gosh. That's crazy
so
to
I
think
know that she's
for
got at
being.
least one other person in her cell. And then I don't know if you remember when she was talking about the toilet talk. Let me tell
No, I
you about the
missed that.
toilet talk. Well, it was right around the time she was getting threats in her peanut butter,
Is this
which,
where
you know,
they empty the water out of the toilet and yell down to the yell into it? Because I did see that on Locked Up.
yes, yes, that's exactly what it is. So you flush the toilet, you hold the handle down until all the water's gone, and then it becomes a way to communicate with people in other wards. And where I was, the people that you could communicate with were on the men's ward.
That's
And
how it
this is
was
what
in this
Letitia was
place.
doing. Right. Well, let me tell you what also happens when you
Oh
do that
boy.
ridiculous shit. So when you do that, it causes major backups in the plumbing. And
Oh
there are
dear.
two cells. So there are two levels in the El Paso County Jail. And she's on the bottom level, last I heard. So there's two levels. But there's basically, it's like, if it's a square, the cells are on two full walls that meet in a corner, right? And
Uh-huh.
then, you know, the other walls are like telephones and you know, whatever. Anyway, so where those two walls meet in that corner is also where the showers are on both levels. And I was in the cell right next to the showers, and I was on the second floor. And that's where all of it backs up. So in the middle of the night, while these lovely women are toilet talking to the people in the men's ward, uh, all of the sewage backs
Yikes.
up into the cell that I was in and the people right below us, right? And
Oh
listen, there's
God.
you don't call housekeeping,
No,
okay?
there's no bell to ring. No.
Right, right. So it was our job to clean up the sewage. And it was no joke. And I'm in there for a traffic thing from like 11 billion years ago. I mean, you know, and I'm in there with
Yeah.
people like, it was the worst 8 days of my life. Other than that, I've never been to jail, but it was awful. Anyway, I'll never forget it. And then, you know, there's, you know, these little tables and, you know, there's people playing cards or, you know, there's a book cart that comes around. I mean, it's pretty basic jail stuff, but Letitia's not in solitary. She's on the top bunk because it's part of her federal lawsuit. And she wants to be on the bottom one because just like anything else, she wants special treatment. And you know how she roped these like 4 or 5 other kosher inmates into signing this, you know, petition for her lawsuit. She's not adding them to the lawsuit. If she wins the lawsuit, they don't get anything. You know, and Letitia doesn't have these lifelong friendships with people like us
No.
regular folks have, you know?
Everybody is
So
a means to an end to Letitia.
exactly. And let me tell you how far that's going to get her in prison, which I have no experience with. I only did 8 days, you know, 100 years ago. Anyway, she's going to rope these people in and try to manipulate them. Now, people in her life, when she's manipulated them to a point that she can't use them anymore or they turn on her, then they get ejected out of her life, right? Uh, that doesn't happen in prison because you're stuck. You know, it's not your world and they're not living in it. And so she's gonna do people wrong because that's what she does.
Oh yeah.
She's gonna suck them in. She's gonna give them legal advice. She's gonna get, you know, whatever it is. She's gonna become the jailhouse lawyer who's gonna help them all, you know, file lawsuits against the prison. And you know, as these things start to backfire, these people will turn on her, and they have their own form of justice.
Oh,
And
yes.
Leticia's not going to be able to file a lawsuit against her fellow inmates.
No.
They will file her grievances for her.
Correct.
You know?
Correct.
And so
Correct.
it's just a matter of time until, you know, but I assure you, she's going to go in and she's going to try and, you know, become homecoming queen or whatever, because
Oh,
she's
bless
so
her.
smart. She's going to be telling everybody about her doctorate, you know, and it won't, in my opinion, you know, I'm not a psychic, but it won't take long at all before people just turn on her. If
No,
it's not
I
immediate.
agree. I 100% agree because look, she's already going in there. All right. Jail and prison are two completely different places. They're
Right.
not the same, y'all. You cannot use them interchangeably. So she will go probably to some diagnostic center for a hot second, right? Unless there's only one place she can go in Colorado. That's the only women's prison or whatever. So if there's only one, that's where she'll go. But even with that, they still do diagnostic because they'll try to figure out where you're best suited inside that prison, right? So think of it as like Dodge. That's where Chris Watts is. He's not even
Right.
in big boy prison.
Right.
Okay. He's still in prison with training wheels. I can't stand him. And the fact
Yeah,
that
and
he's
Daryl Brooks, by the
yeah,
way.
but Daryl would be moved. What's his face will
He's
be
still
in
there.
Dodge forever. Yeah, what's
Yeah,
his name?
he'll eventually get moved. Yeah,
Yeah,
Wow,
but
Daryl.
he was
yeah,
there.
Daryl will, but Chris Watts will
But
not. And
Chris won't.
I
Right.
think it's part of Chris Watts's deal, but whatever. Anywho,
Yeah.
so what'll happen is she's going to get to her permanent home at some point, and that's where the problems will ensue for Etecia. They probably will be a little problematic in the diagnostic center, but when she gets to her real home, she's going to be in there with people who are just like her. They have no fucks to give because they have no chance to get out. That's the most dangerous person in the world, is a person who has nothing to lose. And so what will happen is they're going to find out all about Etecia and how she tried to blame the everybody from the Hispanic community first. That's going to be problematic for her in there. Okay. That's going to be her first strike. But her biggest strike is the fact that she's a child killer. That's going to be even more difficult for her. And then there's the element of just plainly Etecia. I mean, you've met her. We've, you know, she's terrible. She's awful. You know,
Right.
she doesn't have, there's a reason she has no friends because she's
Right, and the only way
horrible.
she rises to the top is by having an enemy, and then she tries to build a group of people based on a shared, you know, negative feeling for the enemy, you know, for the adversary. The only way she rises up is with these adversarial relationships. So she's going to try and get people on her team, but there's got to be somebody that they're going against.
Yes,
And
they
at
have
first,
to.
that's probably going to be the prison. I hope she tries it on a fellow inmate. Yeah.
No, I want her to live a very long life.
Oh, the longest.
The longest life.
Yeah.
That's what I want for her. A long life. Because let's be honest, nothing that happens to Etecia after tomorrow. I want to hear what the closing arguments are. And we all talked about this last night. Nothing that happens tomorrow is going to bring Gannon back.
Right.
So it will, whatever way it goes, which I do not think she does not have a snowball's chance in hell of that jury. I don't think not even a juror's pinky toe moved after Dr. Lewis. If anything, I think Dr. Lewis might have convinced everybody just how sane Etecia was. I think Dr. Lewis did more for the prosecution than probably Dr. Torres did.
Definitely. Well, yeah.
You know, frankly, although
Yeah.
I thought Dr. Torres's testimony was excellent. But
Yeah, I feel like both of the defense witnesses were bonus witnesses for the prosecution.
I agree. Yeah, Letitia's.
Did we lose her again, or did we lose me?
Nope, we lost her. I thought it was
Uh-oh.
me too for a second. There she is.
I muted myself. I didn't have anything to say after a long life. That's all I want for her. I feel like I do feel that in situations, every situation, although what Letitia does is what we like to call on the YouTubes hate bonding. And that's a big thing here on the YouTube.
Exactly.
It's kind of scary.
Right. That's
So
exactly
maybe
what it
think
is.
about that next time you guys think about hate bonding when you want to be like Letitia, because that's how you get to be like
Right.
Letitia. You want to have
Right.
something in common with her? There you go.
Right. And then it all becomes projection. You know, you click up into these little groups, and the only thing that you have in common with each other is that you both don't like so and so. And you do this mean girls bullshit. And then at some point everybody that's watching you realizes that everything that you're complaining about these other people doing is actually what you're doing, which is 100% pulling a Letitia.
Right.
Letitia is now a verb, whether that's a Spanish verb or a Russian verb or a Jewish verb. It's a verb.
Verb. No, Dougie, Spaz, I do not know the jury, obviously, but I did listen quite intently to jury selection. And in the early times, in the beginning, they were bringing
In the beginning.
in the beginning, they brought them in 75 at a time in groups of 75. And the main issue that each of those groups had was the not guilty by reason of insanity, and they didn't believe in it. They thought it was an excuse. Those were their words. And at the end of it all, when they got it down to the 12 that were seated in the 4 alternates, the fact of the matter is the first order of business for the defense was to ask for a bench trial, which tells me they didn't get the jury that they wanted. That they used up all of their strikes and they were done. And then when they did, after the judge said no, then they got up there and they did their opening statements and basically was like, bruh, can y'all just keep an open mind? Just hear me out, okay? That's pretty much what their opening statements were. That's facts. So I just don't think that the jury is going to buy this. I don't think that they're incapable of buying it. I don't think they're going to buy it in this case. That's my point.
Right. When Will Cook brought up Paul Flippin Revere in his opening statements, I was waiting for him to read Letitia's first letter to the judge about how the flag got a hole in it and at Chancellorsville and oh my God. I was like, please don't bring Paul Revere into this. Letitia Stauch is not on trial because Paul Revere warned us about the British, okay?
Right. I mean,
what are you talking about?
Right. I mean, the thing is that look what he did with Dr. what's her name?
Hauser.
Niederhauser. Okay, I cannot remember her name either. Letitia has really damaged my brain cells, I'm telling you. Listening to those phone calls wrecked me for a while. I'll come back. I'll bounce back, but it's going to be a minute. 22 tantrums. I don't know what you should look for, but I can tell you that you should be dressed in red and black for whatever you're looking for. That should be the outfit of the day colors.
Right.
I felt like with her, I know why. I think I know why they wanted her up to testify. They wanted her to testify that Letitia came in looking for mental health help, and that DID is often something that's missed, and it's often misdiagnosed first. But they never got to that. They never got that out of her because they didn't ask the right questions. And these are competent attorneys. That's why it was frustrating to me.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to be so careful tonight because, behind the scenes, Chris and I have talked a lot of shit, but there's things that he just can't say when he's on my YouTube channel.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that goes for everybody.
Right. And he, he's been in contact with Will Cook and Josh Tellini, and he told me like 3 weeks ago that they were watching my Thursday night shows. At least that one that week, and I would like to have Will Cook on specifically and ask him a bunch of questions. And I'm sure that there would be plenty of nasty comments in the chat. I would have to gather the questions beforehand, I think, and not do as many questions from chat because I'm sure that I mean, you know how many negative things have been said about them, but at the
Right.
same time, there's still so much to learn. And I want to ask him, why would you be so friendly with her when you know how litigious she is? Why would you put, you know,
Yeah.
and I want to know whose idea the doctor was. And I want to, you know, and these are questions that if given the opportunity, I can ask, and I can ask in a professional way. And
Right.
he's got to expect all of the negativity. I mean, look at all the people who are still asking questions like, how can you, you know, to any defense attorney, how can you defend people when you know they're guilty? You know,
Right.
and Chris had, you know, he's got some pretty good responses to that. You know,
Well,
look at what a nice guy Chris is, but
yeah.
he has defended some monsters. That's the
Yeah, but
Right.
truth.
he took an oath. Just
Right.
because they're monsters doesn't mean that we have laws and we have rights in this country, and this is the way the American justice system works.
Yep.
And if we start, even Letitia, and I said this the other day, Letitia and I just want you to know, Letitia, the friendship door is closed. You and me ain't never gonna be friends. Okay. I just want you to know that. But even though I dislike her, if we start, she has rights. And if her rights are
Right.
violated, where does it end? You see, we can't become the thing that we hate.
Right.
And so I understand exactly why defense attorneys do it, which is exactly why I don't think that I could be a defense attorney.
No.
However, what I would like to be, which I think I might be getting a little long in the tooth to go to college and become a lawyer, because I still have to go to like get all my I've never attended any college. So
Yeah.
I'd be starting at the very bottom. However, what I think would be a good career path for me is a jury consultant,
Yeah,
because
that would be great.
I am a regular person, and I think that I think I ask pretty good questions, and I think my mind thinks about, puts thinks about what weight each piece of evidence has. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like, if I were on that jury and I were weighing out all of the evidence, although Harley's testimony, I wanted to hear because we haven't heard from her, right? But the
Hmm.
truth of the matter is, what did she really bring? What did she really say? Not that
Hmm.
much. So for me as a juror, if I were sitting on that jury, Harley's testimony would not carry as much weight.
Right.
I would listen to it, I remembered it, but I would also her she didn't her testimony really didn't have a lot of substance to it, bless her heart, because there was a lot of stuff she just couldn't remember.
Right.
And I want to say something too before I forget, because Allie has addressed this, but I wasn't on the panel when she addressed it, and I'd like to address it from my panel. When we were talking the other day about Harley, for me personally, and I know Allie feels this way too, our sentiments on that panel that day is not that Harley is hiding something, that she was complicit or an accomplice or anything like that. I feel that, first of all, she's limited to what she can say based on the question that she's asked. She cannot, it's not like she can just get up there and pontificate. Okay. She's got to
Hmm.
wait for the question to be asked.
Yeah, only
And
Dr. Lewis can do that.
correct, and only for a certain amount of time, because she stepped on the
Hmm.
judge's last nerve. She broke Judge Werner. I mean, he's the coolest guy
Hmm.
ever, super chill, and here she goes. He was even chill about people smoking weed in the stairwell, which I found to be hilarious, because it's not whoever was doing it didn't recognize the problem was the weed smoking. They just thought it was the location. So I know I'll switch locations. I'll smoke in a different stairwell this time. Surely that will be fine. Whatever. Anywho. Um, but yeah, she Mm. I know I got my own self off track, and I don't even remember I was going with that long ass diatribe. I don't remember. We're talking about rights. She deserves her rights. But I wouldn't give Harley. What I wanted to say about that is, I feel personally that Harley has more to say, that
Hmm.
I would like to hear more about her childhood. I would like to hear more about her experiences with Leticia. I would like to hear more about what was going on in her mind that day, not in a courtroom setting. I think she has more to tell, but I think that she could only give the answers to the questions that she was asked. And that's that. That's what I meant by that. I don't think that she's covering for her mom. I think she's in a difficult position. The fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, Leticia is the one who raised her. Okay. And I believe in that it's not nature versus nurture. I think it's a combination of both. I think the right circumstances occurring to the right person can create a monster. And that's just the truth, because there are people that have had horrific childhood and they don't grow up to be abusive. They don't grow up to be killers. So that part, I think, is more of the nature, but nurture plays a part. So that's all I wanted to say about that. I don't know, and I don't want people to think that Allie or I think that, Harley is holding back or she was somehow involved. I don't think so.
Yeah, me neither. I completely agree. People definitely get upset about it, though.
They do. And it's all about perception, what was actually said versus what was heard. Do you know what I mean? So, anyway. I mean, I'm curious as to what the future holds for Harley. I hope everything, works out for her. But I do think she was raised by her mother, and there were a few moments during that trial or during her testimony, particularly with the GoFundMe questions, that I personally, this is my perception of her testimony, I did see some flashes of her mother, some Leticia-like tendencies, as it were.
Speaking of, I just sent you some screenshots
I
in Messenger.
saw that.
And, for obvious reasons, please do not share those.
Never.
But those messages allegedly came from Harley's boyfriend. I mean, it's his account, but they were right next to each other in Grenada at the time. And, so oh God, what do I want to say? I want to be very careful here. But yeah, there are naturally some similarities. And I got a real taste of that when he/she/they, I highly doubt, once I explained myself and then he or she sent me back the message that said, thank you and days ahead with a little red heart. Do you think that her boyfriend was sending me a little red heart, or do you think that was Harley on her boyfriend's account?
I think it makes more sense that it would be Harley on her boyfriend's account. And I'll say this, I've communicated lots of times in many, many chats with men, and I don't think a man has ever sent a red heart to me. I don't even think my husband has sent me a red heart in in a text. He just pretty much, if he's, if he wants to tell me he loves me, he just says it.
Yeah, but in context, coming from what's supposed to be Harley's boyfriend.
What, Allie? You kind of cutting out, babe.
Yeah, very weird. I said I was Harley.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Yeah, I 100% believe it was Harley.
Harley, but it's.
Oh, she just muted.
Uh-oh.
Sometimes she has wonky internet, but yeah, I just think, and I wish the best for Landon and I wish the best for Al, but the person that I really am the most concerned about and worry the most for is Lena, because something that you brought up on your live tonight, Jennifer, was, I thought, very profound. It is very, very important, especially during a trial, to listen to the words that are actually said, not what
Right.
you took away from that.
Right.
Especially when it comes from an attorney. They are
Yes.
very, very careful about the words that they choose to use. And make no mistake, every single word is they chose that specific word in that specific order, and it was very intentional, and there's a reason behind it. And
Right.
I'm worried for Lena based on that. I'm worried because the
Right.
correction was not what I think a lot of people, which I agree with you, interpreted it as. Will
Correct.
you tell the story so that in case they missed it?
Well, it's getting kind of late and I'm tired, so I'm probably going to screw it up. And this actually I got from the conversation in the live stream before that, which was Allie and Melissa Jade.
Okay.
And they were talking about it. And what a lot of people heard when the story was corrected, because Letitia in the interview had said something about Lena helping her carry Gannon up the stairs, and that being Lena's last memory of her brother, or of seeing her brother, or something along those lines. And when the attorneys came back and corrected it, what they said was that was not actually the last memory that she had, but what people heard was that it wasn't true. Lena didn't help carry him up the stairs. That's not what they said. What they said was that's not actually her last memory of him, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you said, especially with attorneys, you've got to watch, the way, everything is on purpose. And that's why Letitia thinks that she was going to be such an amazing person in the courtroom, because she learned how to play with words like that. And it is a power, it is a gift, it is a talent. And that courtroom, what is it? It's storytelling.
Yes.
It's which side can tell the best story. It's storytelling. And every word has to be in the exact right place, believe me, because I have written and unwritten this book 5 times in the last 3.5 years. And every word has to be in exactly the right place, because if you put it 3 words over, it changes the whole fucking truth.
Exactly. This is what their job is.
Right.
The law is the law, and but what lawyers are very, very good at is their interpretation of the law, and they will make an argument that the law should be interpreted this way versus that way. And whoever makes the most compelling argument at the end of the day freaking wins. That's how it goes.
Right.
That's how it works.
Right. I heard, the Lawyer channel?
Yes.
I just got introduced to him a couple of days ago, or not him, but the channel.
Right,
but
right,
he was
right.
saying something today, or I saw it today. He was saying something today about like something that he uses in jury, in the voir dire,
Mm-hmm.
or in closing statements, is like it was something about, saying that, this witness, told you that, oh, I can't do it. I'm sorry. It's too late. But it was something about basically telling you that their right hand is actually their right foot. And they could prove it because it's on the right side of their body, and they sometimes put it on the ground. That doesn't make it a right foot. I don't know.
I know what
That's
I get. I get your meaning. But when
Right.
he said that, what it made when you when you said this, Allie, you keep cutting out, babe. What's going on over there?
I don't know.
Okay,
I'm
now you're
outside, but
good. Now you're good. Okay, now.
okay, yeah, because I've been out here. But yeah, there was a few times I talked, but I don't think you guys could hear me. But I don't know. I'm getting tired too, so I'm probably gonna. I
Yeah, I'm
figured that
about
you were
to end
gonna. You
this.
guys were about to end it anyways because you're getting tired too.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But what
But
did
we
you
were
have
talking
to
about
say,
what you and
babe?
Melissa Jade were talking about.
I know. I think that's so interesting. The other thing I had to say I can't remember now, but about that, I don't, unless we got to see Lena's statements, I don't
Right.
think we'll ever know for sure, and that is gonna drive me crazy. I want to know.
Right. But what drives me crazy is that people heard what they said, and took it and ran with it. And they're in every Facebook group and every Facebook group's weird uncle and telling them that that's the truth. And it's like, no, that's not what he said.
Because
I know.
that's what he said was very vague, and it can be interpreted in two different ways.
Mhm.
Either Lena's last memory of Gannon was from Sunday, which would be, I guess, or maybe early Monday before she went to school, right? That would be her last memory, or it's worse.
Right.
And for whatever reason, I don't know why my mind wants to go to worse, because I just feel like Letitia's not above anything. And there was a period of time when Harley was driving around the neighborhood and it was just Leticia and Landon in that, or Lena in that home. And
Right.
I wonder,
Yeah. And
there's
that
a
was
reason
after.
there's a reason he chose to correct it in that way.
Yes, and see, and I had that same thought, and then I thought, oh no, Jen, you're wrong. Not you, Jen, me, Jen.
Yeah,
But
I call myself Jen too, so it's fine. We're both could be wrong.
but I had that same thought, and I'm wondering, what her last memory of Gannon could have been. And I remembered that Letitia and Lena were alone in the house while Gannon was allegedly still there, and I was like, no, I'm wrong, because then they paraded, Harley and Letitia and Lena were in the car and they went to the friend's house and sent Lena up to the door. And then I realized, no, that happened before they were alone. When
Yes.
Harley and Letitia and Lena went to the friend's house and
Yes.
Lena went up to the door to see if he's there, and then they went back to the house, then Harley
Yes.
went out on her own, and that's when they were alone.
Right. And Leticia's excuse in those early first few days, or at that moment, was she stayed home in case Gannon came back. That's what she said, because there's text messages between Harley and Leticia, and there's also the phone call. Is it? Yes, there's a phone call because they played it, because you can hear Leticia. She's asking Lena about Harley is asking Leticia, and Leticia is asking Lena about different vehicles that might of a description, because there was a specific house she was going to look at, something that Lena said that Gannon went to play. And I remember that. And it's Harley's testimony, and Harley, it's not a phone call. Now I just totally made something up. Let me correct that right now. It's in Harley's testimony. She's talking about that. She is talking about while she was driving around in the neighborhood, she was driving to a specific house looking for this specific friend, and she was on the phone with her mom and asking to tell to ask Lena, does the vehicle look like this, or is it this, you know what I'm saying?
Station wagon. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what that was about. But there was time, and I don't know what I would like to think that Lena's last memory of Gannon is a good memory. But for some reason, my mind keeps like thumping me in the head. My own mind is giving me a thump. Like, that don't be like that. Don't be naive, and don't think that that woman is a monster. And there is a reason that Leticia brought up that Lena helped. She doesn't.
And she brought it to Dr. Torres and to Dorothy Lewis.
Yes, she did.
Right. Well, and let's think back to that Tuesday night, January 28th. So that's when Harley and Lena were alone at the house and the detectives showed up. And Letitia was, out and about doing Letitia stuff. And Albert had already started to become suspicious of Letitia that afternoon and gone back to the sheriff's office. And that's where he was. And then he gave permission for detectives to go to his house and pick up Lena to do the forensic interview. And then
Mm-hmm.
they left Harley
Yeah.
there alone with the detectives. And meanwhile, Letitia's getting a play-by-play from Harley, and
Mm-hmm.
Letitia finds out that they've just taken Lena. Wait, where did they, and you've got to know she's freaking out at that
Yes,
point.
because she's lost control.
She's lost control, right? And Harley had been there with Lena, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so they take Lena, and then less than an hour. Actually, that might not be true. Less than an hour and a half after detectives took Lena out of that house, that's when Letitia started texting Detective Bethel.
Mm-hmm.
And not only about what do you want from me because I have nothing,
I've
and
told
then
you
we're sent
everything
to a
I can
house,
tell.
right?
Yeah.
Fellow blue with El Paso, blah blah blah, whatever.
Yada,
Okay.
yada, yada.
Right, exactly. Okay, so but then we found out recently that there were even more text messages. And so she's texting Detective Bethel that night, right after they take Lena for a forensic interview. Okay, she's texting Detective Bethel and saying, you know what, there's a new story that I have to tell you, but you can't tell my husband because he's going to go crazy. He's going to become violent.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something I need to tell you, but I'm just so tired. Can I do it in the morning? I have to do it in the morning, but I want you to know that I'm going to come there in the morning and I'm going to talk to you, but it has to be a private conversation. And I believe that that's all because because a detective picked up Lena and because Albert wasn't responding to her. She
Yep.
knew.
She knew.
She knew. And that tells me that Lena knew a lot.
Yes.
See,
I
I thought
agree.
that she was all about protecting Harley, and then when they took Lane out of there, she's like, I got to get Harley out of there, you know.
Exactly.
And I guess I just didn't realize until recently, what a big piece of all of this, Lena probably was, and I feel so bad for her.
Me too. Me too. I worry for Lena. I worry
It's
for
awful.
Lena.
Yeah,
I
And
worry
now
for
she's
but
Lena.
11.
Mm-hmm. I worry for
right,
her. I really
right.
do.
Well, and then like then we see them on the news, like with Albert and Landon, and Lena in the front where she's fidgety.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, oh, that poor girl.
I
My
know.
God. I mean, but I really do feel like that was the thing. When they took Lena, I think that's the thing that made Letitia come up with the Eduardo nonsense. Because
Yes.
the first person she started to tell this Eduardo stuff to was Detective Bethel. She didn't say any names. She did her normal cryptic bullshit.
Right.
But she was like, okay, listen, I have to tell you a story. And that was late at night on Tuesday. And then Wednesday morning at 7:19 a.m., she's texting Albert, brings him into the bedroom, tells him the story. He secures the weapons. He gets Landon. He gets the mom and the aunt out of Gannon's room. And then him and Landon go back into the bedroom and allow Letitia to tell this story again. And Letitia and Harley leave and they say they're going to the police station, but they don't go to the police station. And that's when she was like 2 hours late for the interview. But it
Exactly.
all started that the Eduardo story started late night on the 28th, within an hour and a half of them taking Lena to the police station.
Wow.
It's crazy. It set her on a tailspin. Oh my God, it's
Hmm.
starting to freak cold outside. I have to stand outside too because every time I walk in, it, I lose signal.
Oh
I don't know
no.
what the hell. I know.
Well, it's
And it's,
apparently happening all over.
And I'll say this for the record. I think the word, I think we're another part of me, another reason I got frustrated with Dr. Lewis is that what I see in Leticia, now granted, I don't have her education or background, okay? But I'm
Hmm.
pretty good at sniffing out bullshit. I raised 4 children for Pete's sake, okay?
Right.
Um, and I think with what Dr. Lewis sees as evidence of psychotic thinking is nothing more than panic and scrambling,
Right.
and that um, I do think I can't tell you any more than Dr. Lewis can tell you what Letitia was going on in her mind for the all the thoughts that had to be going on in there. That Eduardo story is the one that one. My I kind of feel like Leticia did the Eduardo story. I don't know that she actually thought that they would believe her. I think she used it just exactly like you said, and in the bigger picture, it was a distraction and it
Yep.
bought her time,
Yep.
which is all it was ever intended to do, was to buy her
Exactly.
time so she could figure out what her next move was going to be, which is why she was so adamant about getting back in that home with Albert, because what she really wanted to do was get to Albert and manipulate the shit out of him. But more importantly, she wanted to get to Lena to find out what Lena had told.
I agree.
That's what she wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand how Dr. Lewis doesn't see the logic in that. That's actually logical. I got to figure, I'm the person who did it. That they've taken the child now for a forensic interview. I don't know, you never know what a person sees, right? Or what they're going to say they saw. Okay. So now she's really panicking. And what she's got to do is situate herself between Lena and the Popo.
Mm-hmm.
Or if not, which might be a little too late at this point, but at least she's got to get herself over there to Lena to find out what Lena told them so that she can create another story and alter it to suit what Lena said happened. It's not that complicated.
Right. Well, and when somebody like Leticia has a hold over you, whether you're 8 years old or 38 years old, distance makes your brain come back.
Yes.
And then you start looking at things going, wait, I did what? Like what could, I mean, I
right.
Maybe that's why she thinks she has special powers,
Leticia actually mentioned on the phone with Al too. I didn't even get to tell her bye, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I bet she wanted to. I think
And
that
she
we're
said,
lucky that Lena's still here.
yes, that's what I was about to say. And she said that I actually got along with Gannon better than Lena. Me and Gannon were closer. It's like, well, my God, that is just an awful thought. That gives me awful thoughts. I cannot believe that. Like, thank God she's okay.
It's sad when you think about it. It makes you wonder what I mean, I think we have a glimpse, but just a glimpse of what was going on in that home. And I
Right.
feel very confident in saying that in my opinion, I think what was going on in that home was that everybody walked around eggshells for Leticia, that Leticia's feelings were the only feelings that mattered, which is why I think it's easy for Harley not to cry, because when you're a kid who's raised that your feelings don't matter, you don't bother to cry. It's a waste of time and energy. And
Yeah,
kids learn
the
that.
only time your feelings matter is when they're about to be used against you. So if
Correct.
you let out the tears or you let out the anger or you let out any emotion whatsoever, she will snatch it up and use it against you.
Correct.
My
Correct.
gosh, that is
Like
so
I've
sad.
talked
And
about being the way I was raised, and my dad, if my sister and I were wanted to talk to my dad about something serious, if we were crying, he would dismiss us because we were not we were just emotional, and therefore we didn't know what the fuck we were talking about. So
Right.
I learned that no matter how upset I was, not to cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I also got picked on a lot in school because I used big words and the kids didn't understand the words that I used. And I'll never forget when I was in 4th grade, I came in from recess and all the girls had moved their desks away from mine. And my desk was like a lone desk, like a little island in the middle of the classroom. And do you know what I did? I marched my ass in there and sat right down in that seat. And I said, good, you're distracting me from what I'm supposed to be doing, which is learning. But inside I was devastated. It was sad. It hurt my
that is
feelings,
sad.
like
Yeah.
bitches.
Screw them.
Yeah.
Screw
Yeah.
them.
See, I got
But I
separated from the
learned
other
not
kids
to
in the
show that. I learned not to show
Sorry.
it. Go ahead.
I got separated from the other kids in the class by the teacher. I
Why do
did.
you
I
guys
did.
think?
They would do this thing. It was called being put in Siberia. I remember it. It
Yeah.
was third grade. It was third grade.
Put in Siberia.
And
That's
they would
funny.
take your desk. So she took my desk and she put my desk right next to her desk, but I was facing like the chalkboard. So she's facing the classroom and my back is to the classroom, but she can see me. But then they would put this like three sides of a cardboard box around my
Oh my
desk.
God, I remember
So,
that.
so
I
and they
remember
called
that
it
cardboard.
Siberia.
Yep. Yep. Did that thing have the rules on it? See, because when I had to have that on my desk, it had the rules of the classroom.
No, no, mine was just
Something
blank.
for you to look at and ponder.
Hey, I got
Right.
a question, and then yeah. Well, okay. Let me just ask a question first. Why do you
Okay.
guys think that that Letitia lied to her about her dad? And why did she choose that? Because because it's more violent. It's more scary. Like would that not scare her but she'd be scared of someone breaking her house and killing them. I don't know why you would do that.
Because then you can manipulate her with fear. You can't ever be away from me. I have to know exactly where you are 25/8 because these people are on the loose and they could come and get you.
Right. And I remember at some point, I don't remember where it came from, but oh, you know what? It was the January 29th interview with Jessica Bethel. And she was talking about, because she was looking at her phone and the
Mm-hmm.
detective's like, hey, I'm over here. I mean, that's not what she said, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And she
yeah,
was
yeah.
like, well, I'm a worry mom. And then, like that's where the Life 360 came from. And because she just, is so worried about Harley all the time.
It was a form
But
I think it was
it's
a form of
control.
manipulation and control,
Yeah.
exactly. It was a
Yeah.
everything that Letitia does is in an effort to control everybody and all the situations around her, in my opinion.
Right.
That's just the behavior that she displays. It's manipulative. You
Yeah,
have to
she
tell
does.
me where you are all the time, not because I care, not because I'm worried, but because I have to know, I have to be in control of all things all the time. That's
Well,
got
look
to
at
be.
their little maneuver to get into the hotels all the way across the country. I mean, she had Harley trained. Harley goes in first, stands by the elevator with the dogs. She comes in, uses the Ford Motor Company discount, single person, one bed, no pets. Pays as little as possible. Meets Harley by the elevator, goes up to the room. I mean, that's her role. So then she puts these people around her that will get in line and follow the script, but she is always the director. Always.
Always. And not the
My
good
God.
always, like Professor Snape with his always. The bad
Always.
always.
Right.
God, it's scary as hell just thinking about all that.
She's gonna have a hell of a time in prison.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
A hell of a
Because
time.
she is definitely not going to be in control.
Uh-uh. No, she's
No.
not.
No, she's
But
gonna learn.
Jen,
She's finally gonna learn what consequences are.
Mm-hmm.
I was
And
going to
she
say,
likes
I'm going
to
to join you guys.
maneuver. Oh,
We
sorry.
have a delay. No, it's not your fault. It's a delay. But yeah, I was going to join you guys in the chat because it's cold and it's midnight and I have to get
I'm
up
about
at
to end this.
7
It's
Yeah, I gotta
midnight,
go.
and I gotta stream the trial tomorrow or the closing arguments tomorrow. So thank you
Oh, okay.
girls both for being up here with me tonight and talking a little bit about uh Vallow and Tammy Daybell and
Yeah.
mainly again. I needed to get it off. This is going to be a process, and I think once I'll still have feelings and probably stuff I want to talk about. I know I will after the verdict is read, but I think that will it'll move a little closer to closure for me, and I will be able
Yeah.
to focus on Lori's trial because this one has also a lot of layers, and
Right.
if we don't, I think it deserves. I think it's not. I think people are having a hard time because there's nothing to see. And we're very, very used to watching a trial, not listening
Hmm.
to a trial. But I think listening to it makes you actually pay attention to what they actually are saying. For me, it does
Mhm.
anyway. I'm not distracted thinking, why is her bang sticking up like that? Or what is she doing underneath the table? She looks like she's fidgeting or something. You know what I mean? I get very
Mhm.
distracted very easily. So this makes me have to listen. And I want to be able to devote my entire focus on pointing, you know, interesting things out in the trial. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you guys think is interesting in the trial, what's come out that you find to
Mhm.
be interesting, or something you didn't know, or something that answered a question you had. And we haven't really been able to do that. And thanks, Leticia.
Right.
But that's, that's the truth. And I'm looking forward to
Yep.
doing that. So thank you guys for both being up here. And thank you
Oh,
all in
thank
the
you for having
chat.
me. Yes, thank you for
Well,
Anytime.
having me.
I will be in your chat for the closing arguments, so I'll see you guys in the morning.
Yay!
Oh, I'm
All
excited for
right.
that. I'm
Bright and
super
early at
excited.
11 o'clock.
That's 10 for
Okay,
me.
I
see you
think,
guys tomorrow.
yeah. All right.
Okay.
Good
Good
night,
night. I
girls.
can't wait.
Good night.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.